My beloved child, pause for just a moment, because something about this message is going to feel strangely familiar. Your soulmate has been thinking about you in a way they did not expect, and the emotion that surfaced was not random. It came from a memory, a realization, and one question they could no longer push aside: what if I had been honest with them sooner? Stay with me for a moment, because there is a deeper reason this thought has been weighing on their heart. They may have looked completely normal to everyone around them, but inside, something shifted. They remembered a moment involving you that seemed small at the time, yet suddenly carried an entirely different meaning. And here is where the story becomes surprising: they realized they may have misunderstood your silence. They may have mistaken your distance for a lack of feeling when, in reality, you were simply protecting your heart. As this unfolds, clarity will come. They are beginning to understand that you were not asking them for perfection. You were asking for honesty. You were asking for something real. And the realization hit them harder than they expected. Something huge is waiting for you, because the emotion they felt while thinking about you was connected to a truth they have been avoiding for far too long. There is one particular memory that keeps returning to them. It could be your voice, your expression, a conversation, a simple message, or even the way you looked at them during a moment neither of you fully understood. They replayed it differently this time. Instead of focusing on what went wrong, they started noticing what you were actually trying to communicate. And that changed everything. They suddenly saw how many times you gave them an opportunity to come closer without demanding anything from them. They remembered your patience. They remembered your presence. They remembered how you could make them feel understood without forcing them to explain every emotion. That is why their feelings became overwhelming. They were not simply missing you. They were realizing your value in a completely different way. This may resonate as we continue, because sometimes someone understands your importance only after life becomes quiet enough for them to hear their own thoughts. Your soulmate may have spent time distracting themselves, convincing themselves that moving forward would make the memories disappear. But the opposite happened. The more they tried to ignore the connection, the more clearly they began to recognize what it meant to them. And now there is something they desperately want you to understand: their silence did not necessarily mean they stopped caring. In some ways, their silence gave them the space to finally understand how deeply they cared. But the biggest revelation is still ahead. Your soulmate has been thinking about telling you something they once believed was too difficult to say. Not because they have no words, but because the truth would make them vulnerable. They know that once they say it, they cannot pretend everything is the same anymore. The confession begins with something simple: I should have told you this sooner. Those words carry more weight than you might imagine. Behind them is a realization about the way they handled your connection, the choices they made, and the emotions they kept hidden. They may have acted certain when they were actually confused. They may have appeared distant when they were secretly hoping you would notice the feelings they could not express. And now they are looking back at those moments with a different heart. They are asking themselves whether they allowed fear, pride, timing, or uncertainty to control something that mattered deeply. This is why their emotional moment was so powerful. They were not simply remembering you, they were imagining what could have happened if they had chosen differently. And one thought keeps returning: I don't want to lose the opportunity to be honest with them again. Something huge is waiting for you, but it may not arrive in the dramatic way you expect. It could begin with a small message, an unexpected conversation, a subtle attempt to reconnect, or a moment when they finally stop pretending that everything is fine. And now, my beloved child, listen carefully to the final piece because this is where the entire message connects. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that what they truly want is not another cycle of confusion. They want clarity. They want to know whether the door between you is still open. They want to express what they could not express before. Most importantly, they want you to know that you mattered during the moments when they could not show it. They may never be able to rewrite the past, but they can change what they do next. That is the surprising part. The emotional moment they experienced may have become the turning point that forced them to stop running from their own feelings. They are realizing that some connections cannot simply be erased by distance or silence because certain people leave an imprint that time only makes clearer. So if you have felt lately that something unfinished still exists between you, do not rush to create an answer. Let clarity reveal itself through actions, not assumptions. Stay with me for a moment longer, because the next chapter is not about chasing anyone. It is about discovering what happens when someone who once held back finally decides to speak honestly. Your soulmate may have started with tears in their eyes, but what comes next could begin with courage in their heart. And that is the part you may never have expected. The moment they tried to move past the memory of you, something inside them refused to let it go. My beloved child, your soulmate may have realized something that they never expected to admit. They were not emotional because they had forgotten you. They were emotional because they finally understood how much you meant to them. Stay with me for a moment, because this is where their inner realization becomes even deeper. They started remembering the little things they once overlooked. A message they read more than once. A conversation they secretly wished had lasted longer. A moment when your presence made everything feel lighter without you even trying. And suddenly, those memories did not feel ordinary anymore. They felt precious. As this unfolds, clarity will come. They began asking themselves why they still remember details about you that should have faded with time. Why your words still return to their mind when everything around them becomes quiet. Why certain places, songs, or simple moments unexpectedly remind them of you. The answer they reached was the one they had been avoiding. Their heart never truly treated you like someone temporary. That realization shook them. They may have tried to appear unaffected, but privately, they were confronting the truth that your connection left a lasting impression. And there is something even more surprising. While thinking about you, they began imagining what they would say if you were standing in front of them right now. They imagined looking into your eyes and finally explaining the things they never knew how to put into words. They wanted to tell you that some of their distance was not because you were unimportant. It was because they did not know how to handle emotions that felt bigger than their certainty. They remembered moments when they could have reached out but waited. Moments when they could have spoken honestly but chose silence. And now they are beginning to understand that silence also communicates something. It can create questions. It can create distance. It can make someone wonder whether they ever mattered at all. This may resonate as we continue, because your soulmate may now be realizing that you deserved clarity instead of confusion. That thought became emotional for them. They started wondering whether you still think about them, whether you still remember the good moments, and whether there is any part of your heart that would still listen if they finally opened up. Something huge is waiting for you, because their biggest realization may not be about what happened in the past, it may be about what they want to do differently now. They are beginning to understand that feelings mean very little when they remain hidden forever. At some point, someone has to become brave enough to say what is real. And your soulmate may finally be reaching that point. If this message is resonating with you, take a moment to share it with someone who understands what it feels like to have unfinished emotions. And if you want more messages like this, subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. Because there is another layer to their realization that has not been revealed yet. Your soulmate is not only thinking about the past, they are quietly considering the future. They are asking themselves what would happen if they stopped waiting for the perfect moment. What would happen if they simply told you the truth? What would happen if they admitted that they still care, still remember, and still wonder whether your story has truly reached its final page? Those questions are becoming impossible for them to ignore. And here comes the surprising part. They may have recently experienced something completely ordinary that suddenly reminded them of you with unusual intensity. It could have been a familiar place, a random phrase, a photograph, or even someone mentioning something connected to you. Whatever triggered it, the memory opened an emotional door they had been keeping closed. They realized they were not prepared to permanently let go of the possibility of understanding you again. That is why their emotions surfaced so strongly. They were confronting not only what they lost, but what they still hope could be understood between you. So now, listen carefully, because the message their heart seems to be building toward is simple but powerful. I wish you knew what was really happening inside me. They want you to know that there were feelings behind the moments when they seemed distant. There were thoughts behind the silence. There were questions behind the hesitation. And there may have been far more emotion than they ever allowed you to see. As this unfolds, clarity will come, not through chasing, forcing, or guessing, but through what they eventually choose to reveal. Your soulmate may be realizing that if they want another chance to communicate, they cannot expect you to read their mind. They have to speak. They have to show consistency. They have to let their actions match the emotions they have been carrying. And that is exactly where this story becomes interesting. Because the person who once kept everything inside may now be standing at the edge of a decision, remain silent and continue wondering, or finally open the door and tell you what they should have told you much earlier. Something huge is waiting for you. And the next thing they reveal may explain why, after everything that happened, thinking about you still has the power to touch their heart so deeply. My beloved child, there is a reason their emotions became stronger when they thought about you this time, and it is not something they can easily explain. They were not simply remembering a person, they were remembering how they felt when they were connected to you. Stay with me for a moment, because this is where the hidden part of their realization begins to surface. They suddenly understood that what they miss most may not be a specific conversation or a particular moment. They miss the feeling of being understood without having to explain everything. They miss the comfort of knowing someone genuinely cared. And that realization brought back memories they had tried to place in the past. They started wondering whether you ever knew how much your presence affected them. They wondered whether you ever noticed the little changes in their behavior, the moments when they wanted to say something but stopped themselves, or the times they seemed distant because they were trying to understand feelings they could not organize. As this unfolds, clarity will come. They are beginning to see that you may have understood more than they realized. That thought made them emotional because they suddenly recognized something they had overlooked. Perhaps you were never asking them to have all the answers. Perhaps you simply wanted them to be genuine. And now, when they think about you, they are no longer only thinking about what happened. They are thinking about what they should have said when they had the chance. Then came the memory that affected them the most. It was not necessarily the biggest moment between you. In fact, it may have been something incredibly simple. A look. A smile. A sentence. A quiet moment where neither of you said much, but somehow everything felt understood. That memory returned with surprising clarity. They realized that some of the most meaningful moments were the ones they never properly appreciated at the time. And suddenly they began asking themselves a question that stayed with them long after the memory ended: why did I wait so long to understand this? This may resonate as we continue, because sometimes a person does not recognize the importance of something while they have it directly in front of them. It takes distance, silence, and reflection to reveal what was always there. Your soulmate may now be experiencing exactly that realization. They are looking at the connection from a different perspective, and the details they once dismissed now seem significant. They are remembering how naturally conversations flowed, how certain moments felt effortless, and how your presence could change their entire mood. Something huge is waiting for you because they are beginning to connect all those memories into one conclusion: you were not just another chapter they could casually close. You became part of a story they still feel has something left unsaid. And here is where the emotional shift becomes even more powerful. They are starting to understand that they cannot keep expecting time to answer questions that only honesty can answer. They may have wondered whether reaching out would be welcomed. They may have worried that too much time had passed. They may have imagined every possible response before ever taking the first step. But underneath all those thoughts is one simple desire: they want to know where they truly stand with you. They want to know whether there is still space for an honest conversation. They want to tell you that the emotions they hid were real, even if they did not always know how to express them. If this message feels familiar, remember that you do not have to force anything to happen. Let actions reveal intentions. Let consistency reveal sincerity. Your soulmate may be moving toward a moment where words become unavoidable, but the most meaningful part will be whether those words are followed by genuine effort. As this unfolds, clarity will come. The emotional moment they experienced was only the beginning of a deeper realization. They are finally seeing that protecting their feelings by hiding them did not make those feelings disappear. It only made them harder to understand. And now they are considering whether it is time to stop hiding behind silence. So what do they actually want to tell you? The message forming inside them sounds something like this: I never stopped wondering what could have happened if I had been more honest with you. That sentence carries everything they have been processing. They may want to explain why certain moments happened the way they did. They may want to apologize for the confusion. They may want to acknowledge the times when their behavior did not match what they truly felt. Most importantly, they want you to know that their emotional reaction while thinking about you revealed something they could no longer ignore. You still matter to them. They may not know exactly what the future holds, and neither should you assume it before their actions make it clear, but something inside them has changed. The memory of you is no longer something they can simply push aside. It has become a reminder of what they should have valued, what they should have expressed, and what they may still have the courage to say. Something huge is waiting for you, but the biggest surprise may be this: the person you thought had moved on emotionally may still be carrying a conversation with you in their heart, one they have not finished yet. And when that conversation finally moves from their thoughts into words, you may understand why they became so emotional when they thought about you.